Okay, so here we are again. We got another Masters of the Universe Origins figure to open up for you. Let me just make sure that my camera's rolling and everything's good, and I'm not just a blank screen. There we go. Okay, so Masters of the Universe Origins again, and it is the original concept art Manny Faces from the Sketchbook series. Now, I'd seen this particular design of Manny Faces a long time ago, many years ago. I don't remember exactly when, but I do remember being impressed with Mark Taylor's original design for this character. And you can see he's colored quite a bit differently from the Manny Faces that we remember from the toy line. He did a couple of different colors of him. I think this was the first pass on him, and then there's a later drawing of him where he's a little closer to the color scheme that we usually think of Manny Faces as being, with the blue and the purple and the orange and all that. Let's put him on his human face, and you can see that I always wanted the Manny Weapons version when I was a kid, but we were never able to find it. So my version never had the extra weapons. But since I got a 3D printer now, I started printing out Grayskull weapons in the proper burgundy color. And I actually like this mace with him better than the blaster that he comes with, because I kind of felt like the Origins version of the blaster was a little undersized. But as much as I love the original Manny Faces figure, and he was one of my favorite figures when I got him as a kid, once I saw the concept art with this alternate coloring, this original coloring with the gold and the kind of bluish grayish skin, and he had that kind of poncho about him, I just thought that was really interesting and really cool. And I kind of always wanted a figure of this version of Manny Faces, and now I have one. Al Davis is here and says, "Evening, Alan. Hope you're doing well." I certainly am doing well, at least so far. The art on the back is nice. We got 3 different faces for Manny Faces. Hey, I wonder if that's why he's called that. And you can see some other Easter eggs in here, like there's this character creatively named Evil Robot. I'm pretty sure that's just a placeholder name. They probably would have given him some other name. The Orlax down here, Manny Faces. And hey, this design of Manny Faces came with a mace, so that is an appropriate choice that I made. I wonder if I was thinking that subconsciously when I decided I'm just going to leave him with this mace because I think that looks cool. Al Davis says, "I was thinking Peruvian poncho or Egyptian toga." And Captain Have Fun is here, and he says, "Looks like Egyptian Manny Faces." Finally, glad you finally got the figure you wanted. Thank you. But yeah, like that was what I thought at first. It reminded me of like an Egyptian kind of look with this kind of coloring. But then I'd read in the interview with Mark Taylor that he'd intended it for it to be like a South American, like a Mesoamerican kind of design. But the Mesoamerican aesthetic isn't too far off from the Egyptian aesthetic, so it's understandable. I would think that. I think. Before I get on opening them up, though, let's have a look at some of this artwork on the package. We do have the more traditional Manny Faces here, the as you looked in the original figure, and also here the Filmation design of Manny Faces. And we've opened up both of these figures on this channel before. And then there's the sketchbook version. Al Davis says he needs a 3D printed set of Eternian panpipes. Maybe. I'm sure there's a way to do it. So here's an interesting thing here. We've got Manny Faces chained up at Snake Mountain. And for those of you who don't know, in the design process for the original Snake Mountain box, they had Manny Faces chained up on Snake Mountain. But for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason they decided to swap Manny Faces out with Man-at-Arms. Maybe because Man-at-Arms was a more well-known character, or like a more essential character to the Masters of the Universe cast. So they decided to put Man-at-Arms in there instead. But it's nice to have an acknowledgement of that. We've got an homage to the mini comic where Skeletor and the Goddess were transforming Manny Faces back and forth between his human and beast form, and then he got stuck as a robot at the end. and finally cured again. There he is with his poncho, like we were talking about. And we got the 3 masks over here. You can see those. That's from the mini comic. And that is another piece of concept artwork there that I remember seeing, where he looked kind of paunchy. They kind of fixed it a little bit in that. But yeah, there's all kinds of Easter eggs on here that I like. Oh, here's something really cool. The Talon Fighter came with that book and record set, and in one of the stories in the book and record set, Manny Faces is being controlled by Skeletor, and he's forced to kidnap Teela. So that's what that is right there. So lots of good Easter eggs for fans of the franchise and the mini comics and the behind the scenes stuff, and all that kind of. Al Davis says, sorry for this, but his uncle, the sewage worker, Manny Feces. I don't think you're sorry one bit. And then I don't know if I showed a good look at that, but there he is over there. And like, you know, with the whole Mesoamerican thing, it gives him kind of more of a mystical quality. And it almost kind of fits with that sort of early Masters Universe aesthetic. You can see what they were going for with that. So let me make sure there's no tape over here at the top or the bottom. It's just one piece here at the edge. And these are always just, I always try to open these without damaging the packaging any more than I have to. But for whatever reason, the Sketchbook series figures are just, they just make it so difficult. But I think I got it open there. And there's we more of that artwork we've already seen, but worth looking at again. We'll go ahead and get him out of the package. Set that aside. And the torso from this is remolded from the original Manny Faces. Captain Hatfon says Manny Feces is a good name for many parts of L.A. and Mumbai. Yeah, probably. And San Francisco, too, from what I hear. I heard they actually have an app that you can download so that you can figure out where all the human feces is in San Francisco so you don't step in it. It's like, maybe it'd just be a good idea to clean that stuff up or just not let people poop in the streets. I don't know. It's almost like we live in a civilization, and we should probably, like, you know, act like civilized beings. So here's his accessory that comes with, and it's like this scepter, mace, club kind of thing. It does seem a little more ornate than a mace usually would be, with the 3 kind of bird heads on there. But since he's got 3 faces, it makes sense that his weapon has 3 faces. Pokemon Go? Yeah, maybe. I guess you could call it that. And then he's going to have the rubber tabs all around him. So let's get all those off of him. And then we can talk about this figure. But yeah, I always kind of liked the more mystical sort of look that this design had. And I kind of felt like the Manny Faces that we actually got kind of almost looked more like a sci-fi character, kind of like a space explorer or something like that. And of course, in the comics, he was just an actor. But he was always wearing, like, even before Skeletor transformed him into a beast, he was always wearing this kind of like spacesuit looking thing. So his origin didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Like why is he wearing this outfit to begin with? All right, so we get him out of here. And even though this is like a molded kind of flexible plastic, they did a good job making it look like soft goods. You can see that it's got like a fabric texture kind of sculpted into it. And I think this would have been a very difficult thing to do as far as making it into a fabric thing, because you would have had to print a whole lot of stuff on the fabric or something like that. It seems easier to print it onto the plastic for me, but he's got this emblem on the back with the that tri-bird head thing I was talking about, and an eye, and it's all crazy. Captain Have Fun says, I remember when San Francisco made public nudity legal, they said if you want to sit on a public bench or something like that, you have to put down some newspaper or a towel. you and then Captain Have Fun says you get sweaty and in the heat, and then you wind up with faint newsprint on your butt cheeks and upper thighs. How delightful! Well, he said bum cheeks because that's how they say it. They say the bum. And like, here in America, we just say butt. Here in the United States, we don't talk that fancy bum talk. We just say but. We call the homeless people bums. So I guess they would still be bum cheek. I guess if it was it's a a rude term for a homeless person. So, but nevertheless. So he's got these loops attached to this thing. So like I kind of figured it would just kind of slide over the top. But then when I tried to take it off, I noticed it had these loops that kind of loop over his arms. So the easiest way to get this off is to take the arms off, and then I suppose you could just try to pull the arms through it, but I don't know. I think that would kind of risk breakage. I would not advise that. It's a Masters of the Universe Origins figure, so just take the arms off. You can do that. Captain Have Fun says that fabric-looking plastic is tricky. Printing on fabric isn't hard. I've got toys from the 80s with lots of print and software. Well, maybe. I don't know. But, honestly, the Origins figures, they tend to skew more towards, they tend to skew away from the soft goods. I don't know why, if that's an aesthetic choice or if that's a cost choice for some reason. I couldn't say. But yeah, they tend to do that. So unfortunately, mine has a little bit of a rough spot there. So I'm going to try to see if I can smooth that over with the X-Acto knife. It looks like it just kind of came out of the mold wrong or something. Maybe a little bit of flash from the mold. It still doesn't look perfect, but at least it's not like it's not as obvious or noticeable, I think. Al Davis says, a cheeky bum's bum cheeks sitting at the bus stop trying to read the headlines might get a bit disturbing near the crease. Yeah, maybe. So this guy does have 3 different faces, like Manny Faces usually does. And that's his more human face, which you can see is still looks like it's wearing some sort of mask, like Manny Faces. We traditionally see him looking like he's wearing some kind of mask or face paint or so. I think it's a mask, but he looks a little more mask-like because the chin doesn't quite match up with the rest of his skin color, which is this kind of grayish color. It doesn't look to me like quite as blue as it does in the design artwork. It looks more on the gray side. It's always, I think, supposed to be kind of a bluish gray, but I just want to have a look at the front and the back, and we can see this is the same mold for the torso and the helmet. And then for the arms, he's just got the regular He-Man arms, because in that original art, he just had regular He-Man type bracers. And then the regular He-Man type legs, at least the thighs and the upper part of the shins. And I believe these boots and trunks, those are brand new molded pieces along with the head underneath the helmet. Al Davis says the spinner on top should look like the kid to play flat top. That's more like how the Filmation one turned out, actually. And then Captain Have Fun says, yeah, the Skeletor, Evelyn 87, both look great, but all have plastic capes and cloaks that actually work with that plastic. But if I was a kid, it might not. It might bother me a bit. Yeah, Masterverse. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's because it's supposed to be more the adult collector line. Masterverse has plenty of fabric capes to it. But there aren't as many fabric capes in Origins for whatever reason. I remember Necroconda had a fabric cape, and what was some of the other ones that had fabric capes? Some of them have fabric capes, but most of them don't for whatever reason. So anyway, let's have a look at his other forms. So here is the robot form. And to me, this one looks less like a robot and, again, more like a human wearing some kind of mask. If we did imagine this as being like an astronaut, this could be like the faceplate of the space suit. And, honestly, maybe it was always supposed to look kind of like an astronaut if he was supposed to look Mesoamerican or Egyptian, that book, Chariot of the Gods? There's a question mark in there, so I'm pronouncing that question mark. That was a popular book at that time, which speculated on like the whole ancient astronaut thing and ancient civilizations being visited by aliens. So it's possible. I don't know. I never heard Mark Taylor say anything about it, but it's possible that this version of Manny Faces could have been inspired by that somewhat. But yeah, this to me, like, you see what I'm talking. It looks like less like a robot and more like goggles and some sort of breath mask. So you see what I'm talking about there? It looks less like a robot and more like a human with some kind of faceplate. And then the head keeps getting caught up on things. And then there's the beast face, the monster face. And this one is really weird because it's got like these big tusks on it. And it's just got this big purple snout. And I wasn't sure what was up with that. And he's got 3 eyes. You see he's got an eye in the middle of his forehead. And I kind of figured that was almost more like sort of again, with that sort of mystical look, like I'm talking about, that this figure almost has kind of a mystical look to it, rather than just being pure technology like the old Manny Faces. So let's go and put the club in his hand so we can see what it looks like holding the club. And there's that. So this is a nice color scheme. And I'm not sure why they changed it. I'm not sure why they decided. I'm not complaining about the old blue and orange color scheme. I think that was fine, and I certainly liked it when I was a kid. But I'm kind of wondering what the thought process was, where they looked at the gold, white, and gray and said, "Well, let's go back to the drawing board on that one." I do like all of the faces on this one. All of the faces are better on this version. I like the human face better, because it looks a little more human and a little less mask-like. And I like the monster face better because it looks more like, like what a scary monster ought to look like, with the fangs and everything. And this one just it looks like some kind of strange creature, but it doesn't really look like a monster. You know what I mean? You want him to look like a monster. You want him to look this is a scarier face. And then the robot face, to me, that one looks much more obviously like a robot. I don't know what it is, because they're both kind of like the same basic principle. But to me, this one looks more like a breath mask somebody would wear, like some kind of respirator or something. And this one looks more like an actual robot. I'm not sure what the deal is. Al Davis says, I was sort of thinking one of the foot soldiers from TMNT, or a balaclava and snow goggles. Yeah, see, exactly. It just looks more like a mask. And then Al Davis has slightly mandrill nose, or proboscis monkey. And he's Mumra's Egyptian cousin, who's from Peru. Well, maybe he's half from Peru and half from Egypt. Maybe that happened. Bobby Waldis here and says, I have Manny Faces hanging out on the shelf with Zartan, looking like the scene from Step Brothers. Well, yeah, that's appropriate. I figure like Manny Faces was supposed to be like a disguise kind of figure, but I never really bought him as that, because he's always like wearing the same outfit. He, like, no matter what face he's got on. I guess the original Zartan figure is the same with the mask, but Zartan wore like a full out, like he wouldn't just like put on a mask of General Hawk and walk into G.I. Joe headquarters still dressed like, if Ozzy Osbourne was a character in the Road Warrior. He'd put on a full uniform, or at least project a holographic image of the full uniform. So, but Manny Faces, they only ever showed him just changing his face. And I kind of thought when I was a kid, how I used it was that when he would swap from one face to the other, like all of these kind of identities that he had, like, had different aspects to it. For the monster, he had super strength, but then he had like rages that he couldn't quite control, kind of like the Hulk. Because I loved the Hulk when I was a kid. I still do love the Hulk, but you know what I mean. And the robot was more sort of like if he had like some kind of intellectual, like had to do calculations really fast or something, he would swap over to his more intelligent robot form and figure things out, come up with a plan or something like that. But yeah, I guess they made a good decision in going with like the different faces for this guy. because like, I want to say that there was a more traditional monster face and a more traditional robot face in these designs, but it probably makes sense to go with the ones that looked a little more different. So because it's supposed to be a different type of figure. It's a sketchbook figure. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation on this guy. So first of all, Manny Face's helmet actually can turn, unlike the original one, and it rotates all the way around, and that rotates his head with it. And of course, you can rotate the faces under the helmet and put him with whatever face you want him to have. Manny Face's arms rotate all the way around at the sides and raise up to the sides about that far. And then he's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow, bends about that far, not quite 90 degrees, but he's kind of muscle bound. That's going to happen. And then the forearm rotates all the way around. Of course, the wrists rotate all the way around, and then they have a horizontal hinge that moves back and forth like so. Al Davis says, I can imagine him with a cool-looking sci-fi shield. Well, that'd be another one. Like I do have all these Castle Grayskull weapons I could print out, and I was thinking about printing him out the shield, so he could have the Castle Grayskull shield, and he can still kind of hold that pretty well with the open hand. He can only hold one weapon at a time with most of the other weapons, but the shield, the way that works, it can still kind of fit over that hand. I think I could make it work. So Manny Faces rotates all the way around at the waist. And like we already talked about with this guy, he's a Masters of the Universe Origins figure. So he comes apart at several points in the figure. I don't think the head comes off on this one, because it's just designed to be that helmet that fits in with the torso. Like they figured out a way to do it with the Filmation cartoon, but since they were just reusing the original Manny Faces with this, and why wouldn't they? That's pretty much how Mark Taylor drew it in the picture anyway. They don't really need to make a new Manny Faces helmet. It was one of those things where, like, if they had have done it, I would have appreciated it, but I would have said at the time, they didn't necessarily need to do this. If they hadn't have done this, we wouldn't have complained. Manny Faces can kick up about that far, which is not very far because his thighs are very thick. He's very muscle bound, but he can do the splits no problem. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, bends about that far, and then that rotates all the way around, but at a bit of an angle. And then he's got a boot cut, rotates all the way around. His foot can point down about that far, foot can point up about that far, and then that rotates all the way around. So this figure's been a long time coming, not only because it took me a while to get it, and I had been searching for this guy. Finally found him on the Target app. But then, of course, once I finally got him, he wound up getting delayed because I kept having other things that I felt like it was more high priority to open. Like that Chronicles movie He-Man figure, and the Origins movie Spycore and all that kind of stuff. But I finally got around to opening up Manny Faces, and I do have more. If I can get this back on there, that kind of loop it's kind of getting stuck underneath where the arm's supposed to go. So you want to be careful with that when you put them back together. But I've got the Origins movie version of Beastman that came in the other day, and I've got the Kids Core collection. I've got He-Man and Beastman and Teela to open up, and I should have on the way the 4-pack that Amazon put out with the exclusive Goatman figure and Skeletor and Man-at-Arms and another He-Man. And I'll have the Sky Sled coming with yet another. I'm going to wind up with a bunch of those core collection He-Man figures, aren't I? Well, He-Man always makes for good custom fodder, so I can do some other versions of He-Man that fit in that scale, can't I? I guess that's not such a bad thing, but there he is with the poncho back on. So, but before I did any more Masters of the Universe stuff, I did want to open up some more DC stuff. So, like I said before, next episode is going to be Black Hawk. We're going to open up Black Hawk next. I've been sitting on this guy for a while, so we need to open him up. And then we've got Vigilante. So we'll be opening up Black Hawk and then Vigilante. And then I have the Melissa Benoist. That's how she pronounces her name. I looked it up. The Melissa Benoist Supergirl to open up. I'm very excited about that one because I was a big fan of her as Supergirl. The the Helen Slater Supergirl movie is not that great, but I always thought Helen Slater was a really great Supergirl. So Melissa Benoist kind of had her work cut out for her as far as playing that character, but she wound up becoming my favorite. She actually did wind up surpassing Helen Slater, which I did not think was going to happen. So, and I love Helen Slater, but Melissa Benoist just managed to edge her out. So, but we'll talk more about that when I actually open up that figure. So that should be like a few episodes from now. And then I guess I'll get back onto the Masters of the Universe stuff. But I have opened up a lot of Masters of the Universe. And then I think I'm probably going to, once I get those other movie figures out of the way, I'm probably going to start on opening up the 2000X cartoon collection stuff that I have, which I have a bunch of. So I've got a lot of that to open up. But like, I've opened up a few of them on the channel before. Obviously, I opened up He-Man. We got He-Man right here, actually. And I opened up Clawful when I did that Clawful trilogy. So yeah, we've opened up a few of those, but we need to open up the rest. And I've got Beastman, I've got Evil Lyn, I've got Prince Adam, I've got Zodak, I've got like a whole bunch of them. Captain Halfon says, that Supergirl is good. I wish McFarlane had produced figures like that in the last 2 years instead of panicking and making all those figures in the last few months of their release. Right? Yeah, I agree. Al Davis says, does Black Hawk come with different heads to make a team of them? No, I'm afraid not. He just has the standard Black Hawk head. Although it would have been cool if they had done that, given us some of the other team members. So, and I doubt they're going to get their own figures because, like, I'm kind of surprised even Black Hawk himself got a figure, even though he is a super important character in the history of DC Comics. And I will talk more about that, obviously, when I open up this figure. But of all the characters that DC acquired, didn't create, but acquired, bought from other companies, I think Black Hawk actually is kind of low-key the most important. Because not even because of Black Hawk himself, but because of some of the side effects of buying up Black Hawk. I've got a whole thing I'm going to talk about with this guy, so should be a good episode, and that's going to be our next episode. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that one, make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about this particular version of Manny Faces, and really any version of Manny Faces. Just let me know what your favorite version of Manny Faces is and how you might fit this one into your Masters of the Universe. Al Davis says, I thought the same too. Spielberg was supposed to be making a Black Hawk film a few years ago. Yeah, like that's one he's been working on that one since like the 80s, I think. I don't know if it's ever going to get made at this point, but I remember a while back Spielberg was talking with Warner Brothers about something, and it was when they were kind of restructuring DC films at the time, right before James Gunn took over, and Spielberg was talking with Warner Brothers again. And I was thinking to myself, ooh, maybe he'll do Black Hawk finally. I mean, all you have to do is watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and see how like he would make an awesome Black Hawk movie. Captain Have Fun says, I think Icon is pretty cool too. Wasn't he from a small comic company? Yeah, and then like I don't mean to be disregarding any other characters that DC has acquired over the time, but there's some things that came about because they bought Black Hawk, and I'm gonna talk more about that in the episode. But yeah, like Icon, like technically DC was always publishing the Milestone comics. But it was really more of like an arrangement that Milestone was always a separate company, and DC just published the comics for them. So like they were basically just Milestone could do whatever they wanted to basically, and DC just kind of printed the comics at that point. And then I think they acquired the characters later on once Dwayne McDuffie had passed away. I think that was when they had wound up acquiring. I'm not an expert on the history of Milestone, but as I understand it, that's how it worked, and I could be mistaken. So take what I say about that with a grain of salt. But yeah. Technically, even though like technically he's always been a DC character, technically he was from a different company. So he's kind of somewhere in the middle. Al Davis says, was Blackhawk an expensive figure? Like he would he be potentially cheap enough to buy several in 3D print extra heads? I don't know, because at the time I bought him, I just kind of ordered him off of GameStop, and they had 3D printers done doing 3D printer stuff. At the time, I just bought them off of GameStop, and they had plenty of them at the time. But let's have a look really quick. We'll look up McFarlane, because I'll go ahead and check on online. McFarlane Toys, Blackhawk. And they did do a platinum version of Blackhawk too, where he's wearing a black uniform. It looks like they got him on Big Bad Toy Store, still for full retail price. It looks like on eBay you could pick one up for $30 with free shipping. So he's one that hasn't he hasn't gone up too much in value. He's still relatively affordable. On the other hand, that platinum edition I was talking about with the black uniform, that one looks like that's in the $50 range, but that's a platinum edition, so that's understandable. That's one where, like, if I had to choose, I probably would have rather had the black uniform, because Black Hawk is one of those characters where, and you see this in comic books a lot. I talk about this all the time. It happened with Batman, and it happened with the John Byrne Fantastic Four costumes, which were originally supposed to be black. A lot of the times you have a character that's originally supposed to be wearing a black costume, and, you know, it's comic books. So they put a blue highlight on it. And over time, you get less black ink in there and more blue ink in there, probably just because it's easier to draw it that way. And eventually you wind up with Blue Hawk. I mean, if you look at it on the back, you can see how that could be interpreted as a black uniform even by that point. And that's a drawing from the 1980s. But you can see how that might have been the artist intended that to be a black uniform. I'm not sure if Murphy Anderson was going for a black uniform there or not, but it definitely looks like he was trying to give it at least kind of a leathery texture to the jacket. But yeah, so obviously with a name like Black Hawk, you would imagine he's wearing a black uniform, but he winds up having a blue one. Bobby Wald says, your 3D printer sounds so much more cheerful than mine. Mine sounds like the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Life. Don't talk to me about life. Your 3D printing is finally finished, I guess. I suppose. Whoopee. Good for you. If I could program my 3D printer to do that, I would. And I'd go with the Alan Rickman voice. I know that that's not the most popular version of that franchise, that live action movie. I know a lot of people don't care for it. But, dude, Alan Rickman is always great. And he was especially great in that. That's like one of my favorite characters he ever played. Like Hans Gruber, the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide, and the Sheriff of Nottingham. That's got to be top 3 right there. I know some people will say Snape. He'd probably sneak in at about number 4. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, again, make sure you like and subscribe. All the food and YouTube stuff down below. I feel like I can't say like and subscribe too much, so I'll say like and subscribe again. What the hell? I'm gonna go and take the what do you call it? The thumbnail picture for this, so that by Grabthaw's Hammer. Okay, that would be number 4. Never mind. That would be number 4. And then Dr. Lazarus, yeah, he's number 4. Then Snape would be 5th. You shall be avenged. I'm gonna go out there and say that stupid line one more time. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Next episode is Black Hawk. Don't miss it. Like and subscribe. All that fun stuff. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.